The Valorian hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. Their empire stretched across 1,000,000 stars. They had conquered thousands of worlds and absorbed hundreds of species into their great civilization. Every corner of the known universe belonged to them. Every secret had been discovered. Every danger had been defeated, or so they believed. Commander Velix Torath stood on the bridge of his survey vessel, the Infinite Patience. He was old by his species' standards, with 300 years of service behind him. His blue-gray skin was marked with the scars of countless missions. His 4 eyes had seen wonders and horrors across the galaxy. Nothing surprised him anymore. "Commander," said his sensor officer, a young female named Kira. "We are detecting strange signals from the restricted sector." Torath turned his long neck toward her station. "What kind of signals?" "Radio waves, very primitive. Also chemical propulsion signatures. Someone is launching vessels using explosive fuel." Torath made a sound of amusement. "Chemical rockets, radio communication." This was technology his people had abandoned 10,000 years ago. Whoever lived in that sector was barely more advanced than animals. "Show me the source," he ordered. The main screen changed to display a small yellow star. It was unremarkable in every way. 8 planets orbited it, along with countless smaller objects. The signals came from the 3rd planet, a blue and green world covered in water and vegetation. "There is a problem, Commander," Kira said. Her voice carried worry. "This sector is marked as forbidden. The ancient records say we must not enter." Torath walked closer to the screen. He studied the little blue planet with curiosity. "Do the records say why it is forbidden?" "No, Commander. The files are sealed by order of the First Council. No one has accessed them in thousands of years. The First Council, the original leaders of the hegemony, dead for millennia." Torath had heard stories about them, but he considered most of those stories to be myths and legends. The First Council had lived in primitive times. They had feared many things that modern Valorians understood perfectly. "The First Council also believed that stars were gods," Torath said. "They banned travel to certain nebulae because they thought ghosts lived there. I think we can safely ignore their superstitions. But Commander, the protocols clearly state, the protocols are 12,000 years old." Torath made his decision. "We will investigate. A primitive species using radio waves is not a threat to anyone. Perhaps we can study them. Perhaps we can add them to the hegemony. Either way, I want to know what lives on that blue world." The Infinite Patience changed course and entered the forbidden sector. The journey took 3 days at faster-than-light speeds. During that time, Torath ordered his crew to analyze every signal coming from the blue planet. What they found was confusing. "There are thousands of different languages," reported the communications officer. "Possibly hundreds of distinct nations. They appear to be constantly communicating with each other, but also constantly arguing. A fractured species," Torath said. "Not unified. That explains why they are still so primitive. They waste their energy fighting each other instead of advancing." "There is more, Commander. They have nuclear weapons." Torath's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. "Nuclear weapons? But they still use chemical rockets. How can they have atomic technology without basic space travel?" "Unknown. But our sensors detect thousands of nuclear warheads on the planet's surface, enough to destroy their entire world several times over." This was strange. Most species developed space travel before they developed weapons of mass destruction. It was the logical order of progress. First you learn to leave your world, then you learn to destroy others. But these creatures had done it backward. They had built the power to end themselves before they had learned to escape themselves. "Fascinating," Torath whispered. "They must be very violent." The Infinite Patience dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the star system. Torath ordered the ship to approach slowly, using passive sensors only. He did not want to frighten the natives. Primitive species often reacted badly to first contact. As they drew closer to the blue planet, the crew gathered more information. The dominant species called themselves humans. They were bipedal, with soft skin and internal skeletons. They had only 2 eyes, limited hearing, and a poor sense of smell. Physically, they were weak compared to most galactic species. They should not have survived, the science officer said. Their planet is covered in predators, natural disasters, and disease. Their own biology works against them. They need to sleep for 1/3 of their lives, but their sleep is often interrupted. They age rapidly and die after only 80 to 100 years. By all logic, They should have gone extinct long ago. Yet here they are, Toreth said, building nuclear weapons and sending radio signals into space. How many of them exist? Approximately 8 billion, Commander. Toreth felt a chill run through his body. 8 billion. That was an enormous population for such a small world. His own species numbered only 2 billion across their entire empire. They breed quickly, he observed. Very quickly, Commander. Their population has doubled in the last 50 years alone. For the first time in centuries, Toreth felt something he did not recognize at first. It took him a moment to identify the emotion. It was unease. Something about these humans bothered him. They did not fit the patterns he knew. They did not follow the rules that all other species followed. Move us closer, he ordered. I want detailed scans of their civilization. What followed changed everything. For 19 days, the infinite patience observed Earth from hiding. They watched humans live their chaotic lives. They saw wars and natural disasters. They saw poverty and disease. They saw humans hurting each other in terrible ways. But they also saw something else. They saw humans running toward danger to save strangers. They saw medical workers fighting diseases that could kill them. They saw soldiers carrying wounded enemies to safety. They saw ordinary people giving food to those who had none, giving shelter to those without homes, giving pieces of their own bodies so others could live. They saw a species that should have destroyed itself 1,000 times but somehow always chose to keep going. On the 20th day, Toreth made his decision. He broke 17 protocols to send an emergency transmission directly to the Supreme Council of the Hegemony. He used the highest priority codes, reserved only for existential threats. His message contained only 4 words. The ancestors were right. Then he ordered his ship to retreat from the Sol system at maximum speed. Behind him, the humans continued their lives, unaware that they had just terrified the most powerful empire in the galaxy. A child named Emma finished her homework. A doctor in India saved a patient's life. A soldier in Europe wrote a letter to his family. A grandmother in Japan planted flowers in her garden. 8 billion humans lived and laughed and fought and loved, and the galaxy would never be the same. The message from Commander Toreth arrived on Valoria Prime like a bomb. 4 words traveled across the quantum communication network and exploded in the halls of power. Within hours, the entire government was in chaos. High Counselor Sareth Maul had not slept in 2 days. She sat at the head of the Great Council table, surrounded by the most powerful beings in the hegemony, military commanders, scientific advisors, religious leaders, and politicians, all shouted at each other. No one could agree on anything. No one even understood what was happening. What does he mean the ancestors were right? Demanded Admiral Corvan, the head of the military. Right about what? The Sol sector has been forbidden for 12,000 years, said scholar Morveth Tal, an ancient academic who specialized in history. No one remembers why. The original orders came from the First Council themselves. Then find out why. Sareth Maul slammed her fist on the table. The room fell silent. I want the archives opened. I want every record from that time period examined. I want answers, and I want them now. The archives of the First Council were buried deep beneath the planet's surface. They had not been accessed in thousands of years. Most Valorians had forgotten they even existed. The data crystals were covered in dust and locked behind security systems that no one remembered how to operate. It took 3 days to break through the ancient protections. When the archivists finally accessed the files, they wished they had not. Scholar Morveth Tal was the first to read the complete records. He was 700 years old, the most respected academic in the hegemony. He had studied extinct civilizations and ancient wars. He had seen records of plagues that killed billions and weapons that destroyed worlds. Nothing had ever frightened him. The records from the First Council made him tremble. He presented his findings to the Supreme Council the next morning. His voice shook as he spoke. 12,000 years ago, our ancestors were not the rulers of the galaxy. They were explorers, expanding outward from our home world. They were young and ambitious, and believed they could conquer anything. He activated a holographic display. A star map appeared, showing the ancient borders of Valorian space. They discovered the Sol system during this expansion. Earth was primitive then. Humans had not yet developed writing or metal tools. Our ancestors observed them from orbit, studying them as we would study any new species. And what did they find? Sareth Maul asked. Morveth Tal was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to read from the ancient records. The creatures of the third planet are unlike anything we have encountered. They call themselves humans. At first, we dismissed them as simple animals, no different from the countless other primitive species we have catalogued. We were wrong. These beings are something else entirely. Something that should not exist. The council members leaned forward, listening intently. First, their biology. Humans do not sleep properly. While all known sapient species require extended periods of dormancy, humans remain active for 2/3 of their existence. They sleep only 6 to 8 hours out of every 24. Their minds never fully rest. This alone makes them dangerous. A human can work or fight or plan for 16 hours without stopping. Second, they form bonds with predators. We observed humans living alongside large carnivorous animals called wolves and dogs. These creatures have teeth that can tear flesh and instincts that drive them to kill. Yet humans treat them as family members. They sleep beside them. They trust them with their children. They have somehow convinced predators to love them. Admiral Corvin made a sound of disbelief. That is impossible. No prey species befriends its hunters. Humans are not prey, Morveth Tal said quietly. That is what the ancestors discovered. Humans are predators, but not the kind we understand. He continued reading. Third, humans are persistence hunters. They do not chase prey with speed, like most predators. They do not use venom or traps. Instead, they simply follow their prey. They walk after it, for hours, for days. Their bodies can maintain movement longer than any creature we have studied. They sweat to cool themselves, allowing them to continue when other animals must stop. They chase their prey until it collapses from exhaustion. Then they kill it. They can run anything to death, Morveth Tal said, looking up from the records. Anything in the galaxy. If a human decides to chase you, it will not stop. It will follow you until your heart gives out. The council chamber was silent. Fourth, they heal from injuries that would kill any other species. Broken bones mend themselves. Damaged organs regenerate. Humans can lose limbs and continue to function. They can survive damage that would be immediately fatal to a Valorian. We observed one human continue fighting after receiving wounds that exposed its internal organs. It killed 3 attackers before finally dying. Fifth, they consume poison for pleasure. Substances that would kill most galactic species are human recreational foods. They drink ethanol, which destroys brain cells. They eat capsaicin, which triggers pain responses. They consume caffeine, which damages cardiovascular systems. These things are not medicine or survival necessities. Humans enjoy them. Sareth Mull raised her hand. Enough about their biology. What makes them a threat to the hegemony? They were primitives with no technology. I am reaching that part, Morveth Tal said. His voice dropped even lower. The ancestors included a final warning. I will read it exactly as they wrote it. He took a deep breath and continued. We have observed humans for 3 cycles now. In that time, we have witnessed something that has shaken our understanding of the universe. Humans are the only species we have ever encountered that wages war upon itself and survives. They do not simply fight. They do not simply kill. They create new ways to kill. In the span of a single generation, they advance their weapons of destruction more than most species advance in 1,000 years. They are creative in their violence in ways we cannot comprehend. But here is what truly terrifies us. They are divided. They fight among themselves constantly. Hundreds of tribes and nations, all competing, all developing new weapons, all pushing each other to become more dangerous. This competition drives them forward faster than any unified species could ever move. If they ever stop fighting each other, they will fight us. And we do not know if we can survive. We are leaving this sector. We are sealing these records. We are forbidding any contact with Earth. Perhaps they will destroy themselves. Perhaps they will remain primitive forever. But we cannot take that risk. We are running away. And we are not ashamed to admit it. Future generations, if you are reading this, we pray you have good news. We pray humans are gone. If they are not gone, if they have survived, if they have advanced, may the stars have mercy on you all. Morveth Tal stopped reading. The council chamber remained silent for a very long time. Finally, Sareth Mull spoke. Commander Torith reports that they now number 8 billion. They have nuclear weapons. They have reached their moon. They are sending signals into space, looking for other life. She looked at her fellow leaders, seeing her own fear reflected in their eyes. The ancestors ran away 12,000 years ago. We cannot run. We have an empire to protect. So I ask you, my fellow counselors, what do we do now? No one had an answer. The news spread across the hegemony like wildfire. Within days, everyone knew about Earth. Everyone knew about humans. The ancient records were no longer secret. Fear gripped a civilization that had not known fear in millennia. On Valoria Prime, the Supreme Council met every day to debate what should be done. 3 factions emerged, each with its own solution to the human problem. The first faction called themselves the Purificationists. They were led by Admiral Corvan, and their answer was simple: destroy Earth before humanity could spread. We have the power to end this threat today, Admiral Corvan argued before the council. Our fleet can reach the Sol system in 3 weeks. One strike with antimatter weapons will eliminate the planet. 8 billion humans will cease to exist. The danger will be over. You are talking about genocide, said scholar Morveth Tal. The extermination of an entire species. I am talking about survival, Corvan replied. You read the ancient records yourself. Humans are a threat to every living thing in this galaxy. If we do not stop them now, while they are still trapped on one world, we may never get another chance. Many council members nodded in agreement. The fear was too great. The ancient warnings were too clear. Better to destroy the threat than risk everything. The second faction called themselves the Isolationists. They were led by Minister Deleth, who controlled the hegemony's border defenses. Her solution was containment. We do not need to kill them, she said. We simply need to keep them contained. Build a wall around the Sol system, automated defense platforms, signal jammers, sensor fields. If any human vessel tries to leave, we destroy it, but we let them live on their planet. And if they develop faster than light travel, Admiral Corvan asked, then we destroy them. But the ancient records say they are prone to self-destruction. Perhaps they will wipe themselves out. Perhaps they will use those nuclear weapons on each other. We give them time to destroy themselves, and if they do not, we destroy them. This approach appealed to those who did not want blood on their hands. Let the humans kill themselves. Let nature take its course. The hegemony would simply wait and watch. The third faction was the smallest and most controversial. They called themselves the Assimilationists, and they were led by scholar Morveth Tal himself. His solution seemed insane to many. We should contact them, he said. The council chamber erupted in shouting. Admiral Corvan called him a fool. Minister Deleth called him a traitor. Other council members demanded his removal. Sareth Maul silenced them with a raised hand. Let him speak. Morveth Tal stood his ground. The ancestors ran away because they saw humans as a threat, but they were looking at primitives. Stone Age creatures with no technology. What they feared was potential, not reality. And now that potential is becoming real, Corvan said. That is exactly why we must act. But we still have time, Morveth Tal replied. Humans are advanced by their own standards, but they are still primitive compared to us. They cannot reach the stars yet. They have no idea we exist. We have an opportunity that may never come again. He walked to the center of the chamber, addressing all the council members directly. What if we could guide them? What if we could shape their development? What if we could turn them from a threat into an ally? You cannot tame a plague, Admiral Corvan said. Perhaps not, but humans are not a plague. They are a species, like any other. Yes, they are dangerous. Yes, they are violent. But the ancient records also describe something else. They form bonds with predators. They turn enemies into friends. They take wild creatures and make them loyal companions. If they can do that to wolves, perhaps we can do it to them. The debate continued for 3 days. Arguments flew back and forth. Factions gained and lost supporters. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance. On the 4th day, Commander Velix Torath arrived at the capital. He had been recalled from the Sol sector to provide first-hand testimony. What he said changed everything. Torath stood before the council, still wearing his survey uniform. He had not slept since his ship fled from Earth. The memories of what he had seen haunted him. I watched them for 19 days, he said. 19 days of observation. I saw things that confirmed every fear the ancestors described, and I saw things they never mentioned. He told them about the wars, the violence, The weapons, the pollution, the poverty, every terrible thing humans did to each other and their world. Then he told them about the other things. I watched a natural disaster destroy a human city, he said. Thousands dead in moments, millions homeless. Their government was slow to respond. Their systems failed. By any rational measure, those people were doomed. But then something happened. Other humans came. Not soldiers, not officials, just ordinary people. They traveled across their planet to help strangers they would never meet again. They pulled survivors from rubble with their bare hands. They gave food and water and shelter. They donated blood and organs, pieces of their own bodies, freely given, to save lives. I saw a human doctor work for 30 hours without rest, saving life after life until she collapsed from exhaustion. When she woke up, she went back to work. I saw a soldier carry a wounded enemy to safety, risking his own life to save someone who had tried to kill him minutes earlier. I saw children sharing their food with other children who had none, even though they were hungry themselves. Torith looked at the council with all four of his eyes. The ancestors were right to fear humans. They are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. But the ancestors did not understand why. Humans are not dangerous because they are violent. Many species are violent. Humans are dangerous because they are violent and compassionate at the same time. They can kill you and save you with the same hands. They can hate you and love you with the same heart. They contain every contradiction. They should not function. They should have destroyed themselves 1,000 times. But they did not. They kept going. They kept choosing to survive. That is what makes them terrifying. That is what makes them unstoppable. The council sat in silence, absorbing his words. Before anyone could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the chamber. A communications officer rushed in with an urgent report. A human probe has crossed into our monitored space, she announced. It appears to be a simple vessel. No weapons, no crew. But it is carrying a message. What message? Sareth Maul asked. It is a disk made of gold. It contains greetings in 55 human languages, mathematical equations, images of their world, maps showing Earth's location. The officer paused, her voice trembling. It is an invitation. They are inviting us to visit them. The council stared at her in disbelief. Humanity was not waiting to be found. Humanity was already looking for them. The debate was over. Ready or not, first contact was coming. The golden disk changed everything. The purificationists demanded immediate destruction, but they were outvoted. The isolationists wanted to ignore it, but everyone knew that was impossible. The humans knew they were not alone. They were reaching out. Sooner or later, contact would happen whether the hegemony wanted it or not. Better to control the meeting than to let it happen by accident. The diplomatic vessel, Harmonious Understanding, was chosen for the mission. It was the finest ship in the hegemony's fleet, designed specifically for first contact situations. Its crew included the best xenoanthropologists, linguists, scientists, and diplomats the Empire could offer. Leading the mission was Ambassador Keth Soloran. She was 400 years old and had successfully completed 600 first contact missions. She had met species that breathed fire, species that existed as floating clouds of gas, and species that communicated through color changes in their skin. Nothing surprised her anymore, or so she thought. The Harmonious Understanding arrived in the Sol system on a Tuesday morning by Earth time. It descended through the atmosphere and landed in a field in Switzerland, near a building called the United Nations. This was where human nations met to discuss global issues. It seemed like the appropriate place to introduce the hegemony. Ambassador Soloran expected many things. She expected fear. She expected worship. She expected humans to fall to their knees before superior beings from the stars. Instead, she found a crowd of humans holding signs that said, "Welcome to Earth," in poorly written Valorian script. They had learned her language from intercepted signals. In days, a language that took Valorian children years to master. A human child, approximately 6 years old, pushed through the crowd and stood directly in front of Ambassador Soloran. The child had yellow hair and was missing one of her front teeth. She looked up at the ambassador with no fear at all. "Do you have dogs on your planet?" the child asked. "I have a dog. His name is Captain Biscuits. He is a good boy." Ambassador Soloran did not know how to respond. In 600 first contact missions, she had never been asked about pets. She had never been approached by a child. She had never felt so completely confused. We do not have dogs," she finally said. The child's face fell with sadness. "That's so sad. Everyone should have a dog. Dogs make everything better." A human adult pulled the child away, apologizing profusely. The formal ceremonies began. But Ambassador Soloran could not stop thinking about that moment. A child, facing an unknown alien being from another world, had worried about whether that alien had a pet. What kind of species was this? The following weeks were unlike anything the hegemony had experienced. The human leaders argued constantly. Different factions demanded different things. Some wanted technology. Some wanted alliance. Some wanted the aliens to leave immediately. Some wanted to study the aliens like laboratory specimens. "They cannot agree on anything," reported Officer Velith, the mission's intelligence specialist. 200 nations, each with its own government. Thousands of smaller factions within each nation. They have no unified leadership at all. "How do they accomplish anything?" Ambassador Soloran asked. "They argue until they reach compromise. Or they do not reach compromise and act independently. Or they fight. Their history is filled with conflicts between factions. World wars, they call them. The last major one killed 60 million of their own people. 60 million. The number was almost impossible to comprehend. And they survived? They did more than survive. After that war, they created international organizations to prevent future conflicts. They built economic systems that made nations dependent on each other. They developed weapons so terrible that using them would destroy everyone, including themselves. They made peace through terror. Yes, and it has mostly worked. There have been no world wars since." Ambassador Soloran spent hours talking with human scientists, politicians, artists, and ordinary citizens. She learned things that amazed her and things that horrified her. She learned that humans had split the atom within decades of discovering it existed. They had immediately used that knowledge to build bombs. Then, after using those bombs twice, they had chosen to stop. They possessed the power to destroy their world but had decided not to. She learned that humans had created a network connecting billions of minds. They could share information instantly across their entire planet. They used this miraculous technology primarily to share pictures of their pets and argue about politics. She learned that humans had mapped their own genetic code. They understood the building blocks of their own existence. Instead of immediately modifying themselves into superior beings, they had spent decades debating whether it was ethical to do so. She learned that humans cried at sad stories about people who never existed. They laughed at jokes about their own suffering. They created art that served no practical purpose except to make other humans feel emotions. She learned that humans fell in love, a concept that had no equivalent in Valorian culture. They formed pair bonds so strong that losing a partner could cause physical illness. Some humans died shortly after their partners, not from any medical cause, but because they simply stopped wanting to live. Ambassador Soloran had studied thousands of species. None of them were like this. None of them contained so many contradictions. None of them made so little sense, and yet functioned so effectively. One evening, she sat alone in her quarters, writing a report to the Supreme Council. Her hands shook as she typed. "I have completed my initial assessment. The humans are everything the ancient records described. They are violent, chaotic, and utterly impossible to predict. But the records were incomplete. Humans are not simply dangerous. They are adaptable in ways no other species matches. They do not follow one path. They follow all paths simultaneously. While we spent millennia perfecting a single approach to civilization, they have tried everything. They have failed countless times, but each failure taught them something. Each disaster made them stronger. Their rate of advancement is terrifying. What took us 10,000 years, they accomplished in 200, and they are accelerating. Every generation moves faster than the last. I asked their scientists how long before they developed faster than light travel. They said they did not know. Maybe 100 years, maybe 50, maybe less. They spoke of it as a certainty, not a hope. They have never encountered a problem they could not eventually solve. They see no reason to believe space travel will be different. The ancestors were right to fear them, but the ancestors made one mistake. They assumed humans were a threat that needed to be eliminated. They did not consider another possibility. Humans could be the greatest allies the galaxy has ever seen, or they could be its doom. The difference may depend entirely on how we treat them now. I recommend full diplomatic engagement. We cannot control them. We cannot contain them. Our only option is to befriend them and hope they choose to be our friends in return. May the stars help us all. She sent the report and waited for the council's response. Outside her window, the human city of Geneva continued its noisy, chaotic life. Cars honked. People shouted. Somewhere, a child laughed. A dog barked. The future was coming, ready or not. 6 months passed after first contact. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen. Would the humans attack? Would the hegemony destroy Earth? Would the ancient fears prove true? None of those things happened. Instead, something stranger occurred. Something no one had predicted. Humanity began to change the galaxy. It started with small things. Human music spread across a dozen worlds within weeks. The strange sounds, with their complex rhythms and emotional melodies, triggered responses in species that had never experienced anything like it. Valorian children hummed human songs in their schools. Elderly members of the council found themselves tapping their feet to beats they did not understand. Human stories followed the music. Tales of heroes and villains, of love and loss, of hope and despair. Species that had no words for these concepts suddenly found themselves weeping at human tragedies and cheering at human triumphs. Human food was next, though this spread more carefully. Most galactic species could not survive human cuisine. The spices were toxic. The temperatures were extreme, but some species discovered they enjoyed the danger. Underground restaurants opened on Valoria Prime, serving dishes that were technically classified as biological weapons. Then came the volunteers. A colony world on the edge of hegemony space suffered a massive earthquake. Thousands died. Millions were homeless. The hegemony dispatched aid ships, following standard procedures that would take weeks to arrive. 3 human vessels appeared in orbit within days. They were not warships. They were cargo ships, loaded with medical supplies, food, water, and construction equipment. Thousands of humans had simply volunteered to travel across the galaxy to help strangers they would never meet again. The colony's governor was named Torval Mech. He was a hardened Valorian who had spent 200 years building the settlement from nothing. He had dismissed humans as dangerous primitives, a species to be feared and controlled. He had argued loudly for the purificationist approach. When his daughter was trapped beneath rubble, a human doctor worked for 36 hours straight to save her life. The doctor's name was Sarah Chen. She was 52 years old and had traveled 4,000 light-years because she heard people needed help. When Torval's daughter finally opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Dr. Chen smiling down at her. "Welcome back," the human said. "You gave us quite a scare." Governor Torval Mech wept publicly for the first time in his life. He spent the rest of his days as the galaxy's strongest advocate for human integration. Similar stories spread across the hegemony. Humans showing up where they were needed, humans working until they collapsed, humans treating aliens who had once called for their destruction with kindness and compassion. It made no sense. The ancient records described a species of terrible violence. These humans were giving their time, their energy, and sometimes their lives to help strangers. The Supreme Council struggled to understand. "Perhaps they are trying to infiltrate us," suggested Admiral Corvan, still suspicious. "Perhaps this is a strategy of kindness?" Ambassador Saloran replied. "What do they gain? I do not know, but I do not trust them." Scholar Morveth Tal offered another explanation. "I have studied human history extensively. Their kindness and their violence are not contradictions. They are the same thing." "Explain," Sereth Mol demanded. "Humans are intensely social creatures. They form bonds with everything around them. Family, friends, communities, nations, even other species. When something threatens what they love, they become violent. When something needs help, they become kind. It is the same instinct expressed differently. The problem for us was that humans had never seen us as part of their community. We were outsiders, potential threats. But now they are meeting us. They are learning about us. They are starting to see us as people instead of aliens. We are becoming their friends." Sereth Mol considered this carefully. "And if we become their friends, then they will protect us the way they protect each other. With everything they have. With violence if necessary. With sacrifice if required. And if we become their enemies?" Morveth Tal did not answer. He did not need to. 6 months after first contact, the United Nations formally requested membership in the galactic community. Every species in the hegemony had a voice in this decision. For the first time in the Empire's history, a vote was held across all worlds. The result was close. Fear of humanity had not disappeared, but hope had grown. By a margin of 3%, humanity was accepted. High Counselor Sareth Maul delivered the formal announcement before the full assembly. Representatives of 400 species watched as she spoke. 12,000 years ago, our ancestors encountered humanity and fled in terror. They sealed the records. They hid the truth. They prayed that humans would never find us. She paused, looking out at the assembly. They were right to be afraid. Humanity is everything they feared and more. Violent, chaotic, unpredictable, impossible to understand. They form bonds with predators and consume poison for pleasure. They wage war with terrible efficiency and then rebuild their enemies' cities. They contain every contradiction our philosophers said could not exist in a single species. But our ancestors made one mistake. They assumed that what is dangerous must be evil. They forgot that fire, which burns, also warms. That water, which drowns, also sustains. That chaos, which destroys, also creates. She turned toward the human delegation. Among them stood Ambassador Sarah Chen, the former doctor who had saved Governor Torval's daughter. Beside her stood a 6-year-old girl named Emma, who had been included in the delegation by accident and had become the most famous being in the galaxy. Humanity, you terrify us. You will always terrify us. But perhaps that is not a bad thing. Perhaps the galaxy has been too orderly for too long. Perhaps we need to remember what it feels like to grow, to change, to face the unknown with something other than fear. Sareth Maul extended her forelimb in the human gesture of greeting, a handshake. She had practiced it for weeks. Welcome to the galactic community. Please try not to break it. Ambassador Chen smiled. It was a predator's display of teeth that, somehow, had come to mean friendship. We will do our best, she said. But no promises. The assembly erupted in sound. Some species cheered. Some grumbled. Some remained silent, still uncertain about the future they had chosen. But the decision was made. 50 years later, the first human faster-than-light vessel launched from Earth orbit. It was called the Enterprise, because humans had dreamed of this moment for generations. Aboard were representatives of 37 species, all volunteers, all terrified, all unable to resist the human urge to see what lay beyond the next horizon. The ship's captain was Emma, now 56 years old, the little girl who had asked Ambassador Solarin about dogs. As the Enterprise disappeared into the unknown, she sent a message back to Earth. Just 4 words, echoing across the light years. We are just beginning. And somewhere in the quantum-encoded records of the First Council, the final words of an ancient Valorian ancestor seemed to glow with new meaning. We could not stop them. We could only hope to survive them. But perhaps that is not the worst fate. Perhaps being swept up in their chaos is better than the slow, quiet death of eternal order. Besides, their dogs are actually quite pleasant. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what it needed.